Hello and welcome back to Prism&Co. My name is Colin, and on the docket today, a continuation of my deck collection update for 2022. Now, in part 1, we took a look at each and every one of my tarot decks. Now, here in part 2, we're going to be taking a look at each and every one of my oracle decks. There aren't nearly as many, but there are more than there's ever been, so I'm pretty excited about this category. There will also be a part 3 where I chat through all of my husband's deck collection. That is new and incoming. He immigrated recently from Canada to the States, and so I got a huge influx of decks, and I want to show them off because they're super cool and he's got great taste. But before we get too far, let's take a little spin down music lane and cue the intro. Now, if you watched my first part, my tarot collection for 2022, you know that I gave away these little medals for how many videos a deck has been in. Have they been in just my first? No. See, I'm already screwing this up. Anyway, the more videos a deck had been in, the more of a cool medal that it got. In this case, I'm not going to do that because all of these are new to the collection from the last deck collection update, except for the Supra Oracle. That one has been here for 2 videos, so I'll call it out again once it's around. But let's jump right in. We're going in alphabetical order, and I cannot wait to start with Watcha, a deck for wonder walking. Now, even from the box alone, you can tell that the artist spared no expense putting love and care into every single detail of the deck. It's so beautiful, and the finish is like matte, kind of rose petally goodness. Oh, it's so beautiful. We got this cool labyrinth on the box, all this beautiful watercoloring, and it's got a really unique element to it in that all of the cards are landscape. There are some cards out there, or some decks out there, I should say, that mix landscape and portrait. So like some cards will be this way, some cards are this way. That is a recipe for me never ever buying a deck. I think that is so frustrating to have both in there. Excuse me, I just burped. This deck, however, sticking with the landscape theme, it's really different, it's really unique, but it is not a deal breaker by any means. In fact, it's a cool boon. We can see these beautiful, ephemeral, shimmery watercolors, and they're so rad. They're so inviting and evocative. They just take me somewhere, you know? Some of them are more representational than others. We have a stork, crane, bird here, and we have some bunnies down there. Or like this from the box where we have the little boat. Some of them, like this one, are more abstract. They're just kind of shape and color. I kind of like the shape and color ones better myself, but the ones with just a hint of something are really good too. But to be frank, there's not really a dud in the deck. There are, again, some that I like more than others. The thing that really, really sells me on this deck, though, is its whole shtick. It's a deck for wonder walking. In the guidebook, you draw a card and you look it up, and it gives you a prompt to go on a walk. So here we have dawn. Maybe it would talk about, go on a walk at dawn, or maybe look for things that are just starting, like maybe a flower is budding or something. Or here we have, what is this? Wonder? Wonder, take a look at the little details, like notice a little rock that you might never have noticed before and, really get in there. I've done this a lot, and it's a lot of fun just going around and really having a focus for your walk to be on. I've done photo walks too, where I go out and try and take pictures of edges or shapes or things like that. What else was I going to say? Oh, sometimes the words are hard to read. I will say that. You saw it live. But anyway, I'm going on far too much about this deck. A deck for wonder walking. It's a really, really lovely thing. Next up, we have the Devas of Creation. I got this as a gift from my husband for Christmas, and I freaking love it. I think this might be my favorite Oracle deck. If not, it's at least top 2. It is so, so good. Taking a look at the cards here, we can see that they are, what am I doing? I'm stacking them up like some heathen. They are very shmeary, and I'm using shmeary a lot tonight. Get ready, folks. And ephemeral. Some of them are more representational than others, kind of like the wonder walking, but in different ways. Like here we see a planet. Here we see people in a cave. But on this one, we see kind of a person, but a much more abstracted being. Here we see a scene, this is a real good example. Like we have scenes of things and these sort of spirit creatures. And Scylla decks are something that I want to like so bad, but they just sort of constantly disappoint for me, if I'm being completely honest. I've had the Shimmering Veil, and I've had this deck, and I wanted so badly to like the multi-dimensional Devas and the Book of the Dead and like all these other decks that she's made. Personally, I think she's spun a little bit off the rails, and I think this deck is the perfect little moment of Scylla really hitting her stride and coming up with something cool and interesting where all the art is firing on all cylinders and she's doing her thing. I just love it. I just love it. I won't focus on the negative of the other. I'll focus on the positive of this one. This is almost embarrassingly woo-woo. I think of myself as a very logical guy. I'm very, measured in my approach to tarot and my kind of spiritual practices. But there's something about this deck and Oracle decks in general that really just kind of crack me open and make me want to like go take a walk and draw a card by the river or something. And I think that's really magical. This was the first deck that really did it for me, that kind of cracked the seal and allowed me to get some other, more woo-woo Oracle decks. And I just love it for it. Oh, this video is a lot of fun for me too because I haven't gotten a chance to talk about these Oracle decks, and I'm really excited to. It's kind of hard to because they don't have the same traditional tarot structure, but why not? Why aren't we just cracking it open and seeing what comes out? The Devas of Creation. Let's see what's up next. Up next, we have the Fantod pack. Now, I forget if I mentioned, because I rambled, that the first two decks that I talk about were gifts from Silverius, my husband, and so was this. This was when we first were getting to know each other. He's like, I have the Fantod pack, and I don't really want it. Do you want it? And because of one card, I was like, yes, I've wanted this deck for so long. And let's take a look. It's so weird, everybody. Get ready. This deck is the sea, the air she blows. It is the card that totally sold me on this deck. This deck is like 22 cards or something, and it is awesome. It's so weird. It's kind of like a non-deck in some ways. It's not really trying to be an oracle. The guidebook is like hilariously grim, and some cards are better than others. For example, we have the beautifully rendered urn and then these insects, and I don't really love the insects. The biggest offender, the bottle. But the cards that fire great for me. There's something creepy about it. There's something enchanting. And even though it's very small and very plain, it opens me up to something that I can't quite put my finger on. And I certainly don't want it to go anywhere. The cardstock's awful. Some of the pictures are a little janky. The box is super weird. It's like thick and bizarre. The guidebook is not helpful. And I love it. I love every ounce of this deck's weirdness. Up next, the Living Altar Oracle, another deck that's in the running for my very favorite Oracle deck. And this one confuses the crap out of me because it is very not my normal aesthetic. And it's got some glaring issues that I cannot believe I'm okay with, but it makes me love it more, quite frankly. This is also the first of 3 in a row Oracle decks where I have taken cards out because I don't like them. And because there isn't really a structure that I know, it's easy enough to take them out. Let's take a look at some of the cards. These cards are enormous. They're gigantic. Like, we've seen the cards as they fill up the screen. That's a big card. Like, I have a big hand, and these are hard to shuffle. They're also insanely buttery. Like, too much. Like, true black too much. But for some reason, I love it. They also have this kind of like dirty glossy shape on the back, which is like hair and a butterfly wing and a rose petal. I can't stand how that looks, but again, it just adds to the charm in some way. Beautiful red edging. It's so cool. If you've never seen this deck before, the idea behind it is that these two like modern witches did spells, and I'll show you those in a second. But they did spells like this hair in the background, and then they made screen prints and sort of digitally superimposed them. So each card has kind of 2 pieces to it, the spell and then the image on top. And there are suits. And I didn't know that going in, but there's really, really cool structure to this deck. I think I'll do a video breaking this one down. But there's like a water suit and a fire suit. There are positions in life or parts of the day. There are seasons. There are all sorts of, there's moon phases. Wow, we're just really getting all of them here. And a lot of the colors are similar. Some are different. It's wild. It's all over the place. It's extremely messy. And that messiness is what really surprised me about this deck. It's so gritty and kind of dirty and very unrefined in some ways. And usually those are things that I look for in a deck. I want it to be clean. I want it to be refined. I want it to be consistent. And this deck breaks a lot of those rules. And for whatever reason, I just like it more. I think there's something about Oracle decks that even open me up a little bit to my criteria for decks. Also for my criteria of being just a little more expressive. I freaking love it. The Living Altar Oracle. This is a really, really, really unique one. And I look forward to breaking it down with you. Oh my gosh, I got so excited about the Living Altar that I forgot to show you the cards that I took out. These are the spell cards. So these are the cards that you see that make up the backs of those other cards that we just looked at. So this is kind of one half of them. They're superimposed on the back of the card, those kind of black and white hands, which is part of the reason I don't like them. Looking at them now, I'm actually liking them a little more, but there's something a little too stagnant about them. They don't really ring true in the same way. And when you mix them into the deck, they really don't fit. The rest of the cards have that beautiful white kind of base to them, where these have the back of the cards. But let me show you what I mean by the spell card being in the background of one of these cards. Let's take this guy, for example, an Adolescence. You can see here really clearly that this image has been kind of stamped on or kissed on to this spell in the background, which is really, really cool. And like the Adolescence card and its pair both have the same spell in the background. This is the spell for the water cards. That's that kind of loop of hair that we saw. So all the cards in the Suit of Water are on that same spell. Really, really neat. Love the idea. Don't love the execution of these. Next up, we have the Sacred Creators Oracle. Boy, oh boy, did this one catch me off guard. I saw this just on a whim through a deck collection, and I really, really try hard not to get swept up in the kind of, just like buy fest that those deck collection videos can be. They're really fun to watch. And in part, I do watch them because I'm curious about other decks out there and want to see if there's something that'll strike my interest. And I've heard of this one before, but I was always like, not for me. And then Sylvie was like, why not? Like, it kind of seems like it'd be up your alley. And I was like, and so I took a look at it, and well, here we are. I really like it. This is yet another deck that I have taken some cards out of. I'll show you those at the end, and I'll probably forget about it, so we'll see. This one, we have some really nice, subtle kind of color palettes, some watercolor in the background, sometimes just plain old colors, beautiful graphic design, and a quippy little quote, or a keyword, or it's usually like a little sentence. Fierce serenity. Magic happens when you most expect it. The now. Raw intention. And you know what? I just love it. This is one that, a couple of years ago, I think I would have been too embarrassed to use because it's too woo-woo. It's too oracle-y, to be quite honest. And I liked kind of the occultiness of a tarot deck. I liked the structure, the grit of it. But this, it feels right. And it's actually pretty cool that it is based around creation, like creating things. Because as an artist, I find I need an inspiration sometimes. And these are really geared towards that kind of thing. It's the whole point of the deck. I don't feel like I should have to explain this. And it's just me talking, so it's my fault that I'm doing it. Here we are. But I think it's great. The Spark of Hustle, Limitations Inspire Innovations. Couldn't agree more card. And there's just something about it that it feels cool. And the design aspects of it are great. Now, the cards that I removed. I think these are new cards to the mass market edition. Creator Earth, Creator Water, Creator Air, Creator Fire. I don't know if that's totally true. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, they are in the mass market though. They have this really beautiful watercolor texture in the background, but they are the only cards that do, and that bothered me to no end. And also, with all these really cool sayings and keywords, I was like, oh yeah, I can totally get into there. Creator Fire, I get what that means. Like, I know what classical fire means, but it just wasn't ringing. They felt really dead. They felt very different. And like drawing Soul on Fire next to Creator Fire or Creator Water or whatever, I was like, why does this have so much texture? They stuck out like a sore thumb. Also, for some reason, that purple doesn't do it for me. I think it's a little dull. So I was like, you know what? I'm taking them out. The rest of these are numbered. Thankfully, these are not. These just have elemental symbols on them. So we're taking them out of the deck. I just keep them in the back of the box. That's where they live. That's where they shall stay. And it makes me a happy camper. Next up, we have the ever delicious Supra Oracle. Now, this is one of the Oracle decks that I have that was in a previous video. Supra Oracle, super beautiful. If you're curious why I'm rhyming, it's because my last deck collection video was a rap. So go look at that one. This deck, though, has made it through, although this is not the same version that I had before. I had the first edition, and I sold it to get the second edition, because the second edition is linen finish, and oh my good God, I love linen. And I didn't know this, but the cards fit so much better in the box. The second edition is where it's at, people. Let's take a look. I kind of pseudo have this deck in order, so you'll see very similar themes. I've done a video about this one, gushing and gushing and gushing about how gorgeous it is. Look at this thing. It is incredible. Supra Oracle, full of classical style. This is, what is this? Jungian philosophy meets Gnosticism, something in that realm. It's got very inventive keywords. Things like daemon, things like individuation, anima, animus, primordial, myth. Really cool. And this style just scratches all kinds of itches for me. I love this classical etched look. And these hands, where are we going here? These hands used to bug me. They're very strange. They're kind of knobby. They look a little bit like broken in some cases. But I've been studying alchemy lately, and a ton of alchemical mandalas and illustrations feature this exact style of hand. And I'm like, oh my God, it's a reference. It's a reference. Uzi's so cool, the company that makes these. So incredible. I won't gas on about this one too long because I feel like I've talked about it enough, but I will show you the cards that I've taken out. The Seeker and Manifestation. Now, Manifestation, if you watched my original video, you'll know I'm not a fan. There is so much effort and love and dynamic composition put into these cards. Manifestation feels so lazy to me, and I get it. Like, you can't pour your heart and soul into literally everything, but this one just looks unfinished to me. I've had someone comment before that Manifestation is inherently unfinished. I don't buy it. I think that there's a way to render this in an unfinished way, but that makes the composition feel finished and feel more holistic in the deck. Totally just me. I fully respect you if you want to keep your copy in, but for me, that one's out. The Seeker, I love. I have no problems visually or conceptually with the Seeker, but this deck has two significator cards, the Seeker and the Self. They definitely mean different things. They have different entries in the guidebook, but for me, I just like the Self better, so that's one that I keep in. No shade to the Seeker, like a little shade to Manifestation. I believe this is still my most recent addition to my deck collection. I can't think of a newer one. This is the Wild Unknown Alchemy. Now, in a previous video, I had the Wild Unknown Animal Oracle, and that one has gone the way of the dinosaur, but this one and Kim Kranz's other deck, spoiler alert, the archetypes, are the two oracles that are remaining. Now, I recently did a video on this, kind of comparing the mysteries and the materials to majors in the tarot, which was really fun. A cool way to kind of see some of the concepts of this deck in action. And wow, this deck not only is gorgeous, I think this is Kim Kranz on her game. This is the best she's ever done in my opinion. The cards look gorgeous, they're beautiful, they're colorful, they're interesting, tons of symbolism. They're great. Can I say it enough? They're great. What really is exciting for me personally about this has codified my love of alchemy. It's something that I've always been interested in tangentially, but I've always been frustrated that alchemy is so ungrokkable. There are so many terms and confusing things in the literature, and even different alchemists from various periods would specifically try and be confusing in the way that they write. People would use the same term to mean many different things. So I recently bought a dictionary of alchemical terms. I'll show that off in a future video. It's great. And I'm going to start breaking it down. I'm learning more and more about alchemy, seeing what everything means, and I'm just embracing the fact that things don't always make sense in alchemy, and that's okay. That's just part of the process. And I'm going to take it, I'm going to love it, and alchemy, the wild unknown alchemy, is going to alchemically merge into my heart. Oh my god. It's like, I was going to find some cool card. We're moving on. The final deck in my Oracle collection is the Wild Unknown Archetypes, a very fitting way to end. This deck has broken me open in ways that other decks just cannot, and I've gotten some of my most powerful, exciting, scary readings from this deck, which is so cool to me. I honestly don't read cards a ton. I'm much more of an analyzer of tarot and oracle decks, and I like to, sort of read casually. And when I do, it's cool, it's fun. I feel like I'm pretty good at it. Having an analytical eye towards art is very helpful in that kind of sphere. But this deck just hits me in ways that the other ones do not. And I think this might be my favorite deck that I have. If I'm just breaking it right down, like if I could only keep one, this would be on the short list of things that I would consider. That would be a very, very hard choice, but this would be up there. Is it Kim's best work? No. Are there cards that I don't like? Absolutely. Is it gorgeous and intricate and clever and deep? Oh yeah, you better believe it. It is so, so cool. If you don't know how this deck is structured, there are 4 suits. There are the selves, the places, the items. Oh shoot, I forget exactly what that suit is called now. And hold please. Whew, I'm glad I looked. I would not have gotten there. It is the selves, the places, the tools, and the initiations. Now we see some selves here like the comic, the hunter, the mystic. We see some tools like the gem. We see some places like the bardo or the womb. And then we have an initiation coming right up. It's going to be here any second. It's already here. It's not here. I'm lying to you because I'm stalling for time. Wow, did I already get through them all? Of course I did. Here we go. Kairos? Okay, listen, we found it. Listen. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful in its construction and its craft. It feels loose enough to allow you to creep into its cracks and crevices. It feels tight enough to hold you like a web, and it just sucks me in every time. And I just can't stand how much I like it, quite frankly. Can't stand it. So good. So, am I giving up my tarot collection forever and only using oracle decks from now on? Maybe. Actually, there's no way that would ever happen. I like tarot decks too much. But I have found such a joy for oracle decks in these past years, and I'm so glad that I've kind of allowed myself to open up to them a little bit because they have really, really cool things to offer. I guess we're stacking now. And well, that one's really big. It's fine. We're just going to crowd everybody in here. The moral of the story, I judged oracle decks too harshly. There are some, this small collection, that I find really, really cool. And there's a whole bunch out there that are crap, but that's true of tarot decks. That's true of literally anything that anybody likes. There's good stuff, there's bad stuff. We all have different taste. I'm sure y'all have found 1 or 2 of these that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe you have the living altar in there, that piece of crap. And I get it. Everyone's a little bit different. But I hope you enjoyed kind of taking a glance through what I got. It was really fun showing these off, and I'm excited to make some videos about some individual ones, breaking them down, showing you how they work. It's going to be a great time. Anyway, until the next time, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope a cool oracle deck stumbles into your life soon, if you're into that kind of thing. All right. Bye-bye.